Hello and welcome in. Today we're talking about don't get blocked. How to allow your energy to flow through all of the chakras and not get clogged or stuck somewhere. So we are going to talk about three things today. The first is how to increase your understanding of how the mind, body, and spirit all work together, how your energy flows through your body, and how that impacts your everyday life. Number two, how to do a full body scan in order to assess where is the blockage, what is blocking me, what's stopping me, what am I resisting that's affecting what I need to be doing in my life. And number three, the 7 most common blocks that happen within our energy. I'm excited to go over this with you. Let's jump right in. So first, understanding more so how the body should function in its ideal state, right? So when our body is in alignment. And so I like to think of this as sort of like a river of energy, right? So all the 7 chakras are aligned up the spine and they all have a different light, a different aura, and a different impact on our overall spirit. And when it's in alignment, they're all spinning fast, they're bright, our light is shining, and energy gets to flow through every aspect of us. So it's kind of helpful to think of your life force energy as the greater universe, right? Like that life is growth, it is change, it is our ability to create, it is movement. And so if you think of the universe and overall energy that we're a part of as this big ocean, maybe you think of it as universe energy, maybe you think of it as godlike energy, but whatever it is, we all feel this life force flowing. And so a piece of that life force has been placed inside of you. And so you give your body animation, you give it heat, you give it life, you give it growth. You don't look the same that you looked when you were a kid, and on the inside, your spirit and your soul is also not the same. It's always growing and evolving. And it's growing along those 7 energy centers. Now, when a block happens, maybe one of those centers is slowing down and slower function. For the engineers or the mechanics out there, or just anybody who's driven a car, you know you need each mechanical piece to function well, or else the entire thing slows down, doesn't act right. Maybe other things have to now overcompensate for the weakness in one area. That's what's happening inside of our bodies. That is what's happening with our spirit and with our energy. That maybe one aspect of your energy, one chakra is like doing fantastic, but another one is really weak and it's experiencing a blockage. We want to be able to understand where is that blockage and why is it happening, and kind of understand the deeper philosophy behind each chakra so that we can know where is this blockage happening, we can diagnose it ourselves. Okay, so here's a phrase that I used to say a lot when I was more in my unaligned. Let's say when I was less aligned than I am now. A frequent phrase I would say is, I don't know what's wrong with me. And that was something that I would pretty much say to all the people close to me. So I'd call my mom, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'd call my best friend, I don't know what's wrong with me. And there was a part of me that must have enjoyed it. There's a part of me that must have liked having someone else trying to answer. So like if I'm just presenting that as a problem, I don't know what's wrong with me, then maybe you can figure it out. And kind of taking my problem on the end, pushing it out, and kind of saying, can you figure out my issues? Because I can't figure out my issues. And most of the time, when you're like giving that statement or problem to someone else, it's really should be changed into a question that you're asking yourself. So I learned to, instead of saying, I don't know what's wrong with me, or do you know what's wrong with me, is to ask myself, like, Danielle, what's wrong? Sounds so simple, big change. And it was a question that I didn't want to ask myself because I felt like I didn't want to talk to myself in a way. It's strange. It's like, you know, you talk to yourself all the time, you're always with yourself, but it takes, you know, effort to really turn inwards and to have that self-reflection and self-awareness. So knowing where you're getting blocked is about really becoming self-aware and knowing, you know, what part of my body is this coming from, and then diving deep into that chakra and finding out, well, why is it spinning? You know, why is it spinning slower? Why is the light dimming? And I love the phrase, just as a side note, I love the phrase getting blocked because I feel like it's so common right now. Like, people will, you know, block you and you're like, oh my God, I got blocked. And then it sends you in like into a spin of, why did they cut me off? Is it me or is it them? It's probably them. That's their problem. And then if you are questioning if it's you, you're like, what's wrong with me? What did I make a wrong impression? Things like that. And we do it back to other people too, right? Like, we'll block a person, a place, a thing, and often give it no explanation to them. And maybe you don't really understand why you blocked them. It's just they made me mad. Blocked. That same mindset happens within our own self. We can be blocking our own energy and not realizing it, maybe not giving ourselves a full explanation. And the subconscious is so much more powerful and deep than the conscious. So that 5% of you that's like aware of like, oh, this is what's happened, like, oh, what happened to your elbow, like, oh, I hit the door, versus that 95% of us that are, you know, quiet, subtle, still, subconscious, that requires silence, self-reflection, and digging deep. So, okay, so the first thing I'll ask you is, what symptoms are you feeling, right? So let's say you've logged onto this video because you're feeling a blockage somewhere. The first question is, what symptoms are you feeling? And when you answer this, you want to answer in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. So the body is always the easiest to observe. So in your body, you might say, well, I feel lethargic in my body, and I'm always feeling this way. And I'm having a hard time getting the fire under me. Maybe in your mind, you say, oh, my mind's kind of feeling a little chaotic. I've got like 100 things on my to-do list and I'm having a hard time prioritizing. And then asking yourself, like, well, then how's your spirit? Maybe your spirit's like overall has a vibe. Maybe it's frustration, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's just resistance, a little hesitation. It doesn't always have to be an extreme emotion or an extreme pain. Sometimes it's subtle, and maybe sometimes it's mild, but it's there. So now that you've recognized the symptoms, you've got, usually 3 ways that we respond. First, we ignore it, which I don't recommend, but is a common response. Ignoring it because you're aware or unaware. I'm ignoring it because I'm unaware, like I don't even know it hurts. Like when a bruise just shows up and you're like, I didn't even realize I had a bruise. Or you can research it. Now, researching it is taking it to the next step, which I love. Now you're diving into books and audios and YouTube channels and trying to figure out, like, can I find the answer of why I'm feeling this way? And you kind of go on the search. That can be great, but it can also just lead to kind of like hypochondria, thinking every single thing applies to you. I know I experienced this when I did a deep dive into narcissism. I was convinced that my spouse was a narcissist, and then when I talked to him, he thought I was a narcissist. We were going through a hard time in our relationship, and realized we were just like, I was just like deep diving into that content, searching for an answer, thought that was the answer. It was not the answer. It ended up being a polarity issue, feminine and masculine energy. which we figured out together, worked on together. So I'm very grateful that he rode that roller coaster with me. Like I said, guys, when you're not into a proper alignment, it's just not a healthy space to be in. So really turning inwards. And then the third thing, besides researching it, you can get guidance. You can get guidance from your friends, from your family, from a therapist, sometimes even from strangers. And I'm sure we've seen someone who kind of went up to a stranger, maybe you're at a cash register checking out, and they just unload their whole problem to you and then look at you like, do you know the answer to my issues? So that's someone who's looking for guidance. But in general, you want to go to an expert, someone who's living a lifestyle that you like, someone that is maybe definitely trained. Because what you want to avoid, no matter that area, whether you're ignoring it, whether or not you're researching it, or whether or not you're getting guidance, hopefully it leads you out of because you can go into like a self-awareness loop. Hopefully when you are in your self-awareness loop and you go out, reaching out for help, that whoever you go to sends you back in, sends you back inward, sends you back into yourself, sends you back into self-awareness. Now, sometimes you have to go outward, like for example, to a therapist who then sends you back inwards and asks you questions and asks you to reflect. But sometimes when you go outward seeking for help, they send you farther outward, where, you know, they dive you deeper away from self-reflection, maybe over-medicate, maybe over-drug, maybe point the finger to someone else, tell you to walk out of relationships, or now we're getting back into the block that person, block that place that triggers you, block that thing that keeps triggering you. But you can't just block everything, right? You can't just block the world out. You can't just walk away from every relationship. Sometimes it's about going back inwards and getting through that loop of coming out, seeking help, seeking research, but hopefully sending you back in for the answer. And so there was one more thing I wanted to say about the self-awareness loop. Oh, that when you're going outward to seek help, oftentimes whoever you seek or whatever you seek is just going to mirror you. Okay, so let's say you show up to someone, and I'll just use a friend as an example because I think a lot of us go to friends. You go to a friend and you're really hyper, and you're like, I'm just so hyper, I'm like high strung, I don't know what to do, da da da. The person's gonna mirror that and just look at you and say, you might be hyperactive. You are hyperactive. Well, you knew that. Now someone's just confirming that. And now you're saying, okay, I'm hyperactive. Maybe I have, attention deficit disorder. And you start diagnosing yourself, seeking outward issues. Maybe, and I'm not saying that mental health and mental illnesses aren't real. I'm not saying that some people do need to be out of your circle of influence. All I'm saying is that the first step and the biggest step should be turning inward. For the self-awareness and self-reflection. Or like same thing, if you're depressed, you show up to someone depressed and they look at you and say, yep, you're depressed. And then you say, I have depression. And it's gotta go beyond that. It's gotta go beyond that. Okay, so that was increasing our understanding of how our mind, body, spirit work together. Our physical body is just the physical manifestation of our beliefs, of our inward, of our, our memories, of, our spirit. It's all happening inside of us. This is where the battle is taking place. This is where the growth is. This is where the life is. When our life leaves our body, the body's gonna lay there. Okay, so is it really about the body? No, it's about what's happening on the inside. The body just allows us to see that it's working. So, on the inside, I say, I believe in self-care. On the outside, now I look like I'm taken care of. then the people around me treat me with more respect and more care because they're like, oh, she takes care of herself. I need to take care of her. She respects herself. I need to respect her. So it ripples out. So it really does start on the inside. Okay, so number 2, the second thing we want to cover in this video is how to do a body scan to assess where it's happening. So I do multiple body scans every single day. It does not need to take a lot of time. It doesn't have to be super high tech. You don't need a podcast or a YouTube channel or an audio to help guide you. In the beginning, those are nice. And sometimes when I really want to just follow along somewhere and let someone else lead me through a body scan, I enjoy those things, but it's not realistic as often as it's really going to need to be done. So body scans means that you pause, you take a minute. Often I like to close my eyes, and it's different every time. Sometimes, you know, you do it with your eyes open. Sometimes I like it with my hand on my heart. Sometimes I like it with my hand on my belly. Wherever it is, I try to silence around me. So I'll turn off the radio, I'll step away from the people around me, and I just find a quiet place. If you can't step away, you can still do this. If you just take a moment, I always start with my breath. Take a slow inhale and exhale. And then continue breathing at a slow pace. I like to listen to my breath. I like to make it audible. Helps me slow down time, take a moment, feel like I've stepped out into like this bubble. And then I scan through my body. Sometimes I start from the top down, sometimes I go from the bottom up. It really just depends on where I'm feeling the energy. But I usually start at the top or the bottom. Starting in the middle of the chakras can get a little confusing. But if we start from the top down, I'll just soften through my head, my forehead. Notice if I have any tension here. I notice if there's any slight headaches, if there's any pounding. I soften through my eyes. I notice how much pressure is behind my eyes. If I have any tightness through my forehead, soften through the face, the jaw. Notice if I'm having any ear pain, if I've been overstimulated with noise, too much input, how my throat is feeling, if I feel hydrated, if I've been over talking. Notice how I feel in my shoulders. If they're raised up, I lower them down. Scanning through the heart, listening to my heartbeat, noticing if there's tightness through my back, through my chest, scanning down through my belly, noticing if I'm squeezing anything, I try to soften. Notice through my low belly, this is the place I'm often squeezing. So softening through the low belly, maybe imagining a little pouch, making it soft and gooey. Then lowering down and through my hips, softening, melting, relaxing, scanning down through my legs. Is it shaking? Do I have a nervous kick? Am I relaxed through my knees? Do I have the urge to rub my knees? All the way down to my toes. Are my feet planted evenly on 2 feet? Am I crossing my legs? And so through that scan, I'm just one by one noticing how my body's feeling, where the energy is sitting. Notice where any tightness is. The body will then translate to the chakras, okay? So this is gonna move to our last topic for this video, which is what are the 7 most blocks to your energy? So now we'll work our way back up. If the blockage is in the root chakra, you'll feel it in your legs, hips down, anywhere down. So the most common blockage for your root chakra is fear. It's why in most spiritual texts, they're trying to get you to conquer fear. Most motivational speakers are trying to get you to conquer fear because fear is a root issue. It's a root issue that will stem and grow, and it will feed all the other chakras. It'll feed all of your energy. And so asking yourself, is there anything I'm afraid of in this moment? Is fear conquering me? Is fear blocking me? Fear can make you have restless leg syndrome. It can make you shake. It can make you nervous. It can make you have tight calves and sore knees, okay? It can make your body sit in a position that's uncomfortable, maybe one leg falls asleep and you don't even realize that. You get up and you're like, oh my goodness. Fear is the #1 issue. This is going to affect how well you can trust others. It's going to affect your relationships. It'll affect your decisions. It'll make you fear the unknown. It'll make you be fearful of potential failures. And so it could make you fear isolation. If I do this, will I be left alone? Will I be rejected? So if we want to unblock the root chakra, we have to conquer fear. And so as I go through these, I want you to think about this. Either you block it or it will block you. Either you learn how to block out fear or fear will block you. All right, let's move to #2. We're moving up to the sacral, which is in your low belly. The #1 thing that will block your sacral is suffering. Suffering. Suffering is when we are choosing to suffer in a situation that it doesn't have to be suffering if we just reword it, if we think of it a different way. It can be addictions. So we're suffering because we're addicted to something and we're having a hard time letting it go. If we're dwelling on the same problem, the same issue. Here's an example. I used to have this issue of suffering. I became very mindful of it and decided to block suffering so suffering wouldn't block me. But if something bad happened to me, and it didn't even have to be a big deal, maybe someone cut me off while I was driving, I would immediately call my friend. Can you believe this happened? Someone cut me off while I was driving. Hang up with that person. Someone else called me. What's going on? How's your day going? It was really good until somebody cut me off. It's like, I took a moment that lasted 1 minute and I made it last for hours, days, weeks, and years. There's something in me that was addicted to the suffering. There's something in me that liked it, that couldn't conquer it. And so now it's about blocking the suffering so it doesn't block me. All right, #3, moving up to the solar plexus, which is our upper abs. The #1 block to the solar plexus is our ego. Our ego will get in the way. It will stop us from doing what we know we should do and doing what we know what is right. It'll give us a sense of entitlement, which really does not suit well with healthy people. Healthy people do not like a sense of entitlement. And it will create burnout. Our ego will make us feel like we can do it all, and then we get burnt out, and then we do nothing. So it's like this roller coaster of what we can get done instead of small, consistent, steady practices with our ego in its proper place. So learn to block your ego in a healthy way, and I've got lots of videos on healthy ways to block your ego. And I'm not saying, minimize yourself or to fight your ego, but it is a ratio, it's a balance, or your ego will block you. All right, moving up to the heart and the chest. The #1 block for the heart chakra is lack of forgiveness. Forgiveness, not forgiving yourself, not forgiving others, holding on to grudges, having very low empathy. This is going to block your heart chakra. And the heart chakra is the strongest of all of them. You're going to need a lot of love and compassion and grace for yourself and for others for all of this to work. If we want the energy flowing freely and smoothly and illuminating and watching our inner light glow, you're gonna need your heart chakra to not be blocked. So block lack of forgiveness or it will block your heart. All right, the throat. Okay, the #1 block of the throat chakra, and that is ears, ears, mouth, throat, this whole thing. The number one block is input. What input are you having? So you want to block negative input or it's going to block you. Meaning that what you see, what you're listening to, the words that are coming in will be the same words that are going out. If you have no filter on what you're listening to, you will have no filter of what you say. And to have a mouth that's just reckless and loose, it does so much long-term damage. There are so many situations where someone said something that sat with someone for a lifetime. And maybe even beyond that, if they passed it on to their kids, the words that that person said changed their lineage. And in the same way, you can say some positive things that will change the world and change the lineage. So number one block that input or have your throat chakra be blocked. Okay, moving up to 6, the third eye. The number one block for the third eye is anxiety. Anxiety, feeling overwhelmed. And so basically this is when you've got a lot coming in, it's overwhelming you, you've got intrusive thoughts, you've got lack of focus, lack of clarity. Maybe you have too much coming in and now you're not sure, you've got too much going out, like you have too many paths that you feel like you could take instead of having a path that you're going down that might have multiple things with it. But we're talking about paths that are totally different directions. I could do this or this. I can't do both right now. I can't go. I have to make a choice and the vision is unclear. It could also be, small thinking, only looking at something from one perspective. And so and that can cause anxiety, feeling like there's only one solution to this issue and that solution is not available to me. And then that causes anxiety. All right, so block anxiety or anxiety will block your third eye. And the last one, the crown chakra, number 7. The number one block of your crown chakra is doubt. Doubt. Doubt is such a powerful thing to battle. Adversary, that's what I wanted to say. Doubt is such a powerful adversary because it can shut everything down. It really can. If you doubt what you're doing, if you put doubt into your relationship, if you put doubt into your business, it's going to block it. It's going to shut it down. And a lot of times doubting is a reflection of lack of wisdom. Lack of wisdom is another one, being foolish. All of this is blocking the crown chakra. And really just thinking like a peasant, right? You can't think like a peasant and wear a crown. It's just, they're not putting a crown on a peasant. And so peasants have a lot of doubt, and you can hear it with what they're saying, right? Like all of the chakras come out of that throat. The throat is a powerful one. I'm telling you, just listen to what people are saying. Listen to what you're saying. Even when I was used to talk all the time about, I don't know what's wrong with me. Girl, get it together. Spend some time with yourself and figure out, where is this blockage happening? Be self-aware. Journal, okay? Take some time, listen to the feedback that people are giving you. Your loved ones care about you. They're giving you the feedback even if it hurts to hear it. And so this is enough. Okay, this is enough for us to focus on just ourselves. There's so many ways that we can get blocked. There's so many ways that our energy cannot be flowing through, that we don't need to be worrying about other people. And I'm not saying that in a way that you don't care about other people. You know, I have my husband, I have my children, I have my siblings and my parents and my friends and my best friends, and I care about all of them. But what I'm saying is, put yourself first. You've got more than enough to work on to just focus on yourself. I'm talking to myself too. I have enough to work on right here. I can focus on myself. Now, if you want to strengthen your energy centers, please join me on my courses. I have a course for each chakra. So we do a deep dive into each chakra. And these overview videos, these are excellent. But if you want to go with me step by step, and a lot of this you might say, I know this, I got the knowledge. This is something I can Google, ChatGPT can tell me this. I can, you know, watch it on tons of free content. I get that, but this is the difference. When you take an online course, we do it, it embodies. So it doesn't just come into the upper three chakras and it's like all information, I'm aware, I'm woke, but it's not embodied. You're not doing it, you're not practicing it, you're not seeing the results of it, right? And that's where it becomes, like, I think that's where the value is. The value is, okay, someone can tell me this, but are they living this life? Have they done the work? Do they know what it means to do the work? Do they have the results of doing the work? What do you walk away with? Do you walk away with, for example, and I recommend everyone start with the root chakra, even if you feel like, I feel pretty grounded, start with the root chakra course, because in there you lay the foundation and you actually walk away with a set of your values. And it's beyond just, oh, I know what my values are, but they blow with the wind and they change based off who you're talking to or the circumstance that you're in. No, a set of values that are customized to you, that you created and that you live by. That's just one of the activities that we do in the root chakra course, and all of the courses are like that, right? So it's like heart chakra course. If you want to work on your heart chakra, I highly recommend it. It's the most powerful of all the chakras. And you'll actually take the course and walk away with, here are my boundaries. I've set my boundaries based off of the people that I'll be interacting with, the situations that I'll be in. You won't have to question where your boundaries are, right? So it's like, it takes it from theoretical to actually like, I have it. And I do it in a workbook format. So it's like, we do the homework, we do the worksheets, you actually have it. So it's like, if you need to go back and figure out, wait a second, where was my boundary crossed? You can turn to the boundary page and be like, that's where it was. That was the issue. Maybe it needs to be tweaked. Maybe it needs to be adjusted, or maybe I just need to practice holding that energetic boundary a little stronger. So I highly recommend you join me in this journey. Scan through the chakras, heal each energy center, notice yourself growing, evolving, changing for the better, transforming your life, other people noticing you, having a magnetic energy that people are drawn to you. So I hope that I see you again soon. I love you, God bless you, and namaste.